Hello everyone, it's Angela and welcome to Angela's Color Story. And this week we are continuing the conversation about our palettes, specifically looking at the Old Masters palette, the Impressionist, and the Modern. If you missed those episodes, there were two prior to this one. You can catch those on my website at angelanesbitt.com under the blog section and catch up on a little more information on this topic. But today is the demo day, so we are going to see this in action. So just a quick review, the classical palette is back, think the Renaissance and the cave paintings, and it's more the mineral side of the color chart and primarily earth colors. I think we all can pretty much get pretty clear on that. So, colors like, burnt sienna and yellow ochre, very, very earthy tones and pigments. And it was created a very limited colors. So they relied primarily on value in their paintings. The second palette we're exploring is the Impressionist palette, and this was the Industrial Revolution of the mid-19th century, and it was really a game changer because the pigments were being made in industry for printing and industrial coatings, and this offered a new range of pigments that were made by fusing an inorganic materials such as cadmium, cobalt, and chromium together at a very high heat. So we all of a sudden had all these pigments, and it was just a really big game changer for painters to get outside and really replicate nature. And then came along the Modern palette, which was the end of the 19th century, and this gave way to the field of organic chemistry with lots of applications in industry-related color, like the printing industry. Modern colors are made from the lab, and they are made from carbon. They are typically characterized by greater transparency and greater intensity. So that's kind of the Impressionist versus the Modern is what we're really going to focus on here today, because I think that's where we can get a little more confused. This is a really kind of cool chart here. You can see this is the first part is the Old Masters. So we're looking, ultramarine blue is actually an Old Masters color, but it was so expensive that you don't see it that much. It was made from lapis lazuli, and I may be butchering that pronunciation, but it was more expensive than gold. So it also kind of comes down into the Impressionist palette. Payne's gray, ivory black, burnt sienna, vermilion, terra verte, yellow ochre, raw sienna, burnt umber, and raw umber. Now, like Payne's gray may not have been available back then, but that's a color that's very representative of the Old Masters palettes. Then we come down to the Impressionist, and we have ultramarine blue, cobalt, cerulean, Prussian, indigo blue, manganese violet, ultramarine violet, alizarin crimson, and then all the CADs, the reds, the orange, the yellows, CAD green light, Viridian, and Naples yellow. And then the Modern colors are down here, and these are all the phthalo colors, all the Winsor colors in the Winsor Newton line are Modern colors, all the quinacridone colors, permanent rose. So there's quin violet, quin magenta, quin red. Again, the Winsor colors in the reds, naphthal's are Modern colors, and the Hanzas. So you can kind of get an idea of the differences here. So I have here for the demo the naphthal red, the CAD red medium, the Hansa yellow medium, CAD yellow medium, phthalo blue, and cerulean blue. So first, let's just look at this transparency versus opaque statement. And the Modern colors are typically, not always, but typically they are more transparent than the Impressionist colors, meaning you can see through them. Light can travel through them, and color, so you can see the color that's underneath a transparent color. So here's the naphthal red. If when you put a transparent color across a black line, you can see the black line coming through. So that's kind of a quick check. Also, if you simply spread it out on your palette, you can also kind of see the light coming through from the white canvas very easily. So here's the Cad Medium, so you cannot really see the black line. Here's the Hansa Yellow Medium, which I can see the black line, so that's transparent. So we've got Modern Color, transparent, Impressionist Color, opaque, Modern Color, Hansa Yellow, transparent, Cad Yellow Medium, Impressionist Color, opaque. Phthalo Blue is a modern color and it is transparent. Ultramarine Blue is actually also transparent and it falls more in the Impressionist line. So it's not always true, it's generally true. And then Cerulean Blue is opaque, which is an Impressionist color. So that's one difference. If you're looking at your paint supplies and trying to choose a color, you might consider whether you're looking for a transparent color or an opaque color when you're trying to choose between an Impressionist or a modern palette. The next thing I think that's really interesting about these two different palettes is the intensity of the colors. Typically, here they look, except for the cerulean, it maybe looks a little duller, but the yellows look pretty much the same when you squeeze them out of the tube. So they look the same intensity. They even look the same as far as if they're opaque or transparent. You really can't tell. But what is really different in them is the intensity and the tinting strength. So it takes just a little bit of a modern color typically to compromise a little bit of white. And that's important when you're mixing, because if you don't know that and you get a whole bunch of Naphthol red and put it in your white, you're just going to have a really big pile of paint if you're trying to lighten it. So that's one thing to pay attention to. And I think generally the Cad colors just get a little more grayed down easily with white, and they look a little more like a natural color. So this is the Naphthol. I'm just gonna, let's see, I'm gonna try to do this equal. I tried to do equal little piles of white. So I'm just gonna kind of dab in a little bit of the Naphthol into this white and just see what it looks like when we mix a little of it into white. And then I'm gonna do the same, try to get the same amount with the Cad Red Medium. And you can see I did the same amount and it's not even turning color. It's not even changing colors yet, hardly. It's very faint. So let me go again with another dab and see what happens. So that's a great example of tinting strength. So this Cad Red Medium just is not as strong of a tinting strength than the Naphthol Red, which is, again, the Cad is the Impressionist and the Naphthol is the modern. Now let's get a good bit of it and see how the white is naturally going to gray a color down or neutralize it out a little bit, make it less intense. So that's the Cad Red Medium. Now back to the Naphthol. Let's put a little more in here and just see what it looks like if the white grays it down as much. And as you can see, it does not. The Cad Red Medium is much more subdued than the Naphthol Red. So same experiment, moving on to the Hansa Yellow, the modern color. Just a dab. I'm gonna actually clean my palette knife a little bit more, get all the yellow, all the red off. Okay, let's get a dab. This is the Hansa Yellow Medium. It's not as strong as these, so that didn't do a whole lot. And actually in this one, the Cad Yellow Medium seems to be a little bit of a stronger color than the Hansa is. So it's a little bit the reverse on the yellow here. But if we put a whole lot in there, let's see how bright it is with, if the white can neutralize the Hansa as well. They're pretty similar. I'd say this one's not quite, this one looks a little more green to me, but they're pretty similar. So that's, the biggest difference here would be the opacity of the cad yellow versus the transparency of the Hansa. So I'd say in intensity, this would be an exception to the rule. Typically, the colors will be in more intense, but these two, they're pretty close. So here's the phthalo. I think we all know that that was just the smallest touch of the phthalo blue, and it made a difference very quickly, so it's very intense. And here, make sure I get a knob. Here's the cerulean. And it just, you can see how much it's gonna take of the cerulean. I'll just get a whole bunch of it. See if I can even get close to the intensity. So it took a lot more cerulean to kind of get to the same value of the color as the phthalo. And you can see that this is it's a little more subdued than the phthalo blue. So this is just a way to kind of explore your colors and check them out and understand the big displays that are just so confusing sometimes in the paint stores, and really understanding, you know, what you're picking and why. So again, if we're trying to stay with a little more opaque, a little slightly more subdued, we're going to stay in the Impressionist palette, or even go into the Old Masters palette, which is, you know, much more earth tones with the yellow ochres, the burnt sienna, raw sienna, burnt umber, raw umber, all those colors, terra verte. Impressionist, getting into the ultramarine blue, cobalt blue, cerulean Prussian, all the cads, Naples yellow, a little more opaque, a little more subdued. Modern colors, the phthalos, the Windsors, the Quins, the Naphtals, the Hansas, brighter, more intense, and transparent generally. So I hope that helps you the next time you're in the paint store. And also remember the quick trick of looking up the color index. If you happen across a color that's like a like Sèvres blue, if you look at the back, you can see what pigments are making up this this color. So this has got a couple of different blues in it, one being phthalo and maybe the other cobalt. I'm not sure, I can't read it right now, but if you missed that, that was in the very first episode, which was called What's in the Tube, and that's really, really helpful. I hope you enjoyed this. Check out my website, angelanesbitt.com. Join us in the Facebook group, Angela's Color Story. It's a free private group. I'd love to see you there. And until next week, cheers.